Okay, let's do it. So for those of you who aren't aware, we just wanted to thank you. I apologize again about the miscommunication with the start time. I'm glad to see you all here. We wanted to welcome you to the Virginia Dam Safety Act webinar presented by Jim Lang with the Waterfront Law Team. We have just a few housekeeping items just to remind folks, if you could please make sure your cameras are on mute during the webinar. And during the webinar, if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat function. At the end, we'll open up. We've saved time so we can address those questions. And if anything comes up at the end, feel free to ask as well. And as I just mentioned, we will have a recording of this session available after the webinar. So for anyone who might have missed it, or if you have colleagues you'd like to share it with, that will be available. And now I'd just like to give a brief intro to our host, Jim Lang. He's a shareholder and former COO of the law firm of Pender and Coward. Jim focuses his practice on protecting Virginians who live, work, and play on the water. He established the Waterfront Property Law Team, Waterfront Property Law Practice Group at Pender and Coward, and he routinely handles all aspects of riparian property rights law, maritime and admiralty law, and environmental law. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Jim.
Thank you very much, Abigail, and good morning. I'm really pleased to have all of you with me for this webinar on the Virginia Dam Safety Act. And here's a slide that runs through what we're going to cover today. Fairly long laundry list. I won't read it to you, but we're going to touch on each of these topics as we move through today's presentation. I thought we would start with this slide that gives you an image of a typical dam. And of course, what is a dam? But it is a structure that's been placed across a stream or a river to create a reservoir to hold back water. Dams started popping up in Virginia in the 1600s. Grist mills, sawmills, and then in the late 1700s and 1800s, when the Industrial Revolution arrived, dams came into use for cotton mills, especially larger dams at that point, to provide power for these thread making mills or textile mills. And then in the early 1900s, as electricity came into use, dams started being created in Virginia for that purpose. And as you move through the 1900s, a series of larger and more powerful dams were being built for electricity to service large areas, but also water reservoirs or flood control. And by the 1970s, they were being built for nuclear power plants. You can think Lake Anna up in middle part of the state, built in 1972. Causes of dam failure. Overtopping is one of the major causes. Probably about 1/3 of the dams that fail, it's because the water gets started coming over the top, and as soon as it gets started coming over the top, even a little bit, a little stream starts coming over the top, it starts creating erosion, and it cascades very quickly into a catastrophic dam failure. You'll see listed there some of the other frequent causes, main causes of dam failure. Another one has to do with the drains in a dam. And you can see in this image, in the water, just a little bit away from the dam, is the dam spill release structure. And then you can see a dotted line that signifies a pipe going through the body of the dam. And then you can see water being released at the foot of the dam. Well, that pipe going through a dam becomes one of the main causes of dam failure, because over time that pipe needs maintenance, and if those maintenance needs aren't attended to, then water starts going through the area outside of the pipe and causes erosion, and then can cause the dam to fail. Inadequate maintenance, that would fall under that category. And so dams fail for a variety of reasons. So what's a dam failure look like? Here's a artist's conception of a major dam failure in the late 1800s that happened in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, killed over 2,000 people. David McCullough, historian, wrote a book about this, and I've given you an excerpt out of his book where he vividly describes how what a huge catastrophe this was. This is, though, just one of many major dam failures. In the 1920s in Los Angeles County, you have this, this St. Francis Dam that failed. The image on the right, it is the side view of the dam after a big chunk of the dam is gone. And you're looking at a side view of what remains. A wall of water traveled 54 miles before it hit the Pacific Ocean. It killed close to 400 people and damaged thousands of acres of land. This was before Los Angeles County was heavily populated. And even in the 1970s in Idaho, here's a dam that was designed by the Bureau of Reclamation. And on the initial fill, this dam failed. And this is the photo that you're looking at here. Killed about 11 people, but $400 million in damage, flooded 5 counties. Dam failures are very dangerous things. So legal response to dam failures. The common law has its own set of responses, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But in 1972, the federal government acted by adopting the Federal Dam Inspection Program. And I've given you the citation to the US Code where you can see that statute. And then there are regulations as well at the federal level. Broadly speaking, the federal government's response was to task the Army Corps of Engineers to go inventory all of the dams in the entire country and to assess the condition of the dams and whether they were dangerous or not dangerous. But come up with an inventory, assess the condition, and then send a report to the governors of each of the 50 states telling them about the dams in their state. It did not create any power for the federal government to come in and mandate what should be done with respect to dams. The vision of this federal law was to encourage the states to step into that role. And in 1982, Virginia adopted the Virginia Dam Safety Act and placed the Virginia Soil and Water Conservation Board in charge of administering the program. The Virginia Soil and Water Conservation Board is an agency within the Department of Conservation and Recreation. And I've given you the code citation there. As well, there are regulations at the state level for how the Dam Safety Act is going to function. So the common law, that was the first response to dam failures. And under the common law, there were 3 main theories. I've listed them there. Trespass is the one I want to touch on because trespass law does not require any showing that the dam operator was somehow negligent or that there was any fault on the part of the dam owner. Trespass law says that if you invade the property of another person by entering onto the property without permission, and that entry can be you physically enter the property or you send something into the property like water, you will be liable for any damages that result. And significantly, you can also be liable for punitive damages. So that is the legal theory that has seen the most attention in the very few cases in Virginia where this has been litigated. But there are also other legal theories available under the common law sounding in nuisance and in negligence. But when the Virginia Dam Safety Act was adopted in 1982, it created a scheme of strict liability. So if the dam fails and all that water gets released and it causes damage downstream, the owner is going to be strictly liable, the operator is going to be strictly liable, and your liability is going to encompass all personal injury and all property damage. And it is not a defense to show that your dam was fully compliant with the requirements of the Virginia Dam Safety Act. It's a strict liability statute. Um, unsafe dams, the government's ability to deal with unsafe dams depends on whether the problems with the dam are considered an imminent danger or a non-imminent danger. If it is an imminent danger and the owner doesn't immediately do what needs to be done to protect the people downstream from the dam, the governor of the state has the authority to take immediate action, and then the attorney general can force the owner to pay for the costs of those actions. And those costs, the payment for those costs, will be secured by a lien on the owner's property. If you have a non-imminent danger, then the Soil and Water Conservation Board is going to be in touch with the owner and is going to tell the owner what needs to be done to bring the dam into safe condition. And if the owner refuses, the director of DCR has the authority to issue an administrative order. If the dam owner thinks the order is improper, there's an avenue where you can contest that with a hearing before the board. And if the board issues a decision that the dam owner thinks is improper, there's an ability to take it before a circuit court and get a ruling there. But if the owner of the dam simply defies the order, refuses to comply, then there's the possibility of civil or criminal penalties. And in the photo that you see on this slide, this is the remains of a dam failure in Austin, Pennsylvania in 1911. When this dam failed, it wiped out 2 towns in Pennsylvania, Austin and Costello, Pennsylvania, killed 78 people. And in current dollars, the damage is about $140 million. And you can see Freeman Creek now, running free through what's left of that dam. But the idea when the dam was installed was to create a reservoir by backing up Freeman's Creek behind this dam that has now failed. The regulators at the Virginia Soil and Water Conservation Board have the authority to enter your property to inspect your dam. They're limited to doing it in a manner that's reasonable in terms of time and place, and they will seek your consent before entering your property. But if you refuse to let them in, it's very simple for them to get a warrant. All they have to do is submit an affidavit that says that the dam is not known to be safe. Very low legal standard, very easy to get a warrant of that type. Other tools available to the regulators: if you have an unsafe dam, the director of DCR can issue an order requiring you to fix the problems. And these orders can come up in a couple of different scenarios, one of them being that there's construction being done on a dam without the necessary approval, or the dam is being altered without necessary approvals, or a dam is being built in the first place without necessary approvals. Or alternatively, if you received the approval to build a dam or alter a dam, but the work is proceeding in a way that doesn't comply with that approval, again, you can be looking at an enforcement action from the regulatory agency. If you receive one of these orders, there will be a hearing where you will have the opportunity to show cause why the order is improper. And if you don't like how that hearing turns out, you can appeal the results into circuit court. But if you simply defy the order, if you receive an order and simply defy it, then you are at risk of an injunction or civil or criminal penalties. A person who refuses to comply with an order, the agency can go to court and get an injunction. And if the agency has to do that, the person who defied the order, per the terms of the statute, can be required to reimburse the agency's expenses in going to court and doing that. And those court-ordered expenses will be recovered if necessary through imposing a lien on the owner's land. So you can see that the government has a lot of muscle here if it chooses to flex that muscle. If you defy an order and the agency, instead of going to court and trying to get an injunction, they can instead criminally prosecute a person who defies one of these orders, or a person who constructs or alters a dam without approval, or a person who interferes with an agent of the Virginia Soil and Water Control Board who's trying to enter the property and inspect a dam. Any of that kind of conduct can leave you open to criminal prosecution as a Class 3 misdemeanor. Civil penalties are also a possibility, and you can see the monetary amounts there. If the regulators decide to take this approach, then you'll receive a written penalty notice. You can go before the Soil and Water Conservation Board to contest that penalty notice. And if you don't like how that decision was made, you can appeal it into circuit court. I've given you here a list of additional resources. There's the DCR website is very helpful. A lot of good information on the DCR website. And then I've also given you a link to 2 articles on my blog that cover Virginia dam safety. And I've also given you an image here of another dam that's probably not subject to the Virginia Dam Safety Act because it looks like it was built by beavers. I guess the closing thought I would leave you with before we get to questions is I've run through this and shown you all of some fairly strong tools that are in the toolbox that the regulators hold. And as you think about all of those possible things that the regulators could do to force compliance, it could be a little bit unnerving, I suppose. But I would tell you my experience is that the regulators are not they're not eager to use those big enforcement tools. I think the regulators approach this from the standpoint of trying to work with the regulated community. Some people might think that they're not aggressive enough in using some of the tools they have to force dams that are not in compliance to be brought into compliance more rapidly. But the regulators have a lot of discretion in this area. And so if you've got regulators who are showing up, pointing out that there's problems with your dam and telling you what needs to be done to fix it, you'd be well advised to work with them. But know that if you defy them, they do have some pretty powerful tools they can use to bring you into compliance. And with that, I'll open it up to questions. Abigail, do we have any questions?
We had a few that were sent in prior. Is anyone on this call have a question they'd like to ask?
Can you hear me?
Kurt, is that, yes, I see a phone number. I don't see a name, but we can hear you.
Okay, good. It's Michael. I don't have a microphone hooked up to my my desktop.
Okay.
I have a couple questions if I could ask.
Yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
Michael.
Okay. Hey, Jim, have you ever represented an owner before the VSWCB?
Not yet. And I don't know that they come before I don't know that very many cases are brought before the VSWCB because I think most of these things get worked out in the field without the need to elevate it. But I I have represented people in front of any number of administrative agencies, the Virginia Marine Resources Commission, the Army Corps of Engineers, you know, on and on, but have not had a case yet in front of the Soil and Water Conservation Board.
Okay. And then my last question is, can you describe your relationship to DCR and VSWCB if you have any?
I don't really have a relationship with those agencies other than I did work with a representative of that agency when the Virginia Lakes and Watershed Association put on its dam safety seminar in Richmond earlier this month.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we just had a question over the chat function. It's, can you elaborate on dams on agricultural properties for farm properties? And if they are subject to the same design and review requirements?
Great question. Let's talk in answering that question. Let's begin sort of more globally and talk about, you know, how many dams we have in Virginia, and then kind of narrow it down to the agricultural situation.
Mr. Lang, if you want, I can answer the question on the farm use dams.
Go ahead.
Hi, guys. I'm Tom Roberts. I was with DCR Dam Safety for 17 years. I've been happy every day since I left. Anyway, farm use dams, the dam has to be both over 25 feet high and over 50 acre feet. I'm sorry, over 100 acre feet to be regulated under the dam safety laws. There are, I don't know, somewhere around 30 or 40 of those dams that are in the inventory in Virginia that are that large and they're ag use. They fall under the same regulations as all other dams that are not ag, that are over the size limits. So that those fall into the regulations, and they require the same design and review requirements as any other dam. If the dam is less than those criteria, and I'm working on one right now down towards Farmville, it does not, it falls just under the regulations, and so it does not have to have any of the permitting or review of their modification plans or anything like that. So that I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. And I worked with Tom at that seminar I mentioned a moment ago, and we're lucky to have somebody with Tom's expertise in the room today. So thank you, Tom, for helping us with that.
I learn everything. I learn something every time I talk with you, though.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a little scenario to run by you, just seeing if there's anybody that might be able to help. I'm the general manager for a property owners association in Louisa, Virginia. We've got a 325 acre private lake. The dam and spillway has been downgraded to a poor rating, and we're being told to replace the spillway, as well as add some tow embankment drainage. It's a significant project for the size community that we are, almost cost prohibitive, and we haven't been able to find any funding. So, even though we have the desire to replace the spillway, we don't have the means yet. And we've tried to get a FEMA brick grant, and we haven't been able to successfully get a DCR dam safety grant. So I was looking to see if there was any other outlets that anybody might suggest where we can possibly find some funding to help our community out.
Why? So you can bring them for after nap.
Because I told you could have gummies.
We've got some background noise. Can whoever that is, could you please mute?
I think it might be Michael. If you could please mute.
No, I don't have gummies, and I don't have any children.
the question about sources of funding, and I'm going to ask Tom to help me with this, but I do know there are dam safety grants through DCR, but I believe you mentioned you pursued that and your project doesn't fit. Tom, are you aware of any other sources of funding?
Yes, just short of $1 billion or $750 million has been allocated in the what is it? The big bill infrastructure bill, right? There's a they just hired a crew of 25 people in FEMA and a new director to form a department. When I say a new one, all within the last 4 months. I'm sorry, 6 months. 6 months. It's since September. To shovel this money out the door within 4 years of last September. So they got to get rid of all this money, FEMA does, out the door to dams and dam owners. It's not well known, but I think you'll find when you research it, and I have not done this, research it, that if you have a shovel-ready project, you're almost 100% going to get some money out of this. So if your project has gotten to the point where you're ready to go to construction, you got a DCR alteration permit, and I would say get on the phone, call the generic number for FEMA, and just keep at it for a couple hours till you get to the right people, and tell them you have a shovel-ready project, and it's important that this get fixed for the safety of the people downstream, and they'll be glad to have you help them get rid of all this money.
Yeah. And for the folks on the webinar today, Tom, who has just shared that information, Tom has tremendous expertise in this field. As he mentioned, he was with DCR for, I think, 17 years and now works in the consulting field, helping people like those on this call who have dams that they own or operate. Tom, I think it would be really useful if you'd give everybody your contact information. Would you mind doing that?
Email address is Tom Roberts, as on the screen there, at letter H, number 2, letter R, dash or hyphen, inc.com, com, and cell phone number 540-449-9024, and Terry or one of the others would be glad to spend your dollars, us on the phone calling FEMA for you and trying to set it up.
Yeah, we got disqualified from the FEMA brick grant due to our county not participating in the NFIP. And we got disqualified from the DCR safety grants due to not being a high hazard or an uncategorized dam. We're a significant hazard dam, and those funds were earmarked for either high or in uncategorized dams. And the FEMA brick grant is only available if your county's in the NFIP.
Okay, this is not through the NFIP program and grants. This is a, for lack of a better word, a major big pork barrel, and it's not based on specific merit. If you can have someone park a trailer home or something down in your inundation zone and make yourself temporarily a high hazard, it might help you get your things. But once you're a high hazard, it's not when DCR says you're a high hazard or DCR puts it on their inventory. You are a high hazard when you are a high hazard, not when your engineer has said so or whatever. It's based on what the conditions are. So I'm not being facetious when I'm saying you may want to temporarily park something down there with somebody living in it, or allow for a free camper or something. And then you are a high hazard dam, and that may or may not help with the federal grant projects. I just know they have a huge problem. They have to get rid of $750 million in 4 years. And so they would see you as doing them a favor if you were able to say, look, I have this project, you know, we need to have it taken care of. Even if you're a significant hazard, I think you got a good shot at it. So I can't tell you more about processes or forms or anything else. The head guy for their department only took office, I think it was about 40 days ago. They hired the 25 people working under him, all green. Before that, the guy who is in charge is experienced in dam safety and that sort of thing. But none of his workers that were hired before he was taken on there. And he's been told every penny of that's got to be spent in 4 years. That's 4 years from last September, or I guess October 1st, which was the fiscal year start for the federal government. So, did I answer your question on that?
Yeah, I don't have a phone number to call, but I understand the idea behind it. And I've spoke with FEMA before, and I didn't get routed to that, but I'm gonna give it another shot for sure.
Just keep saying dam safety. You want the guy who is in charge of the infrastructure bill monies for the improvement of dams and dam safety. My firm, we do work on dams. We don't advertise it, but we don't advertise for anything. I mean, all of our work is by reputation. So let's see, could you go ahead and open that door? Yeah, sorry. Well, the receptionist just said she's going to lunch, so I had to make sure the front desk is covered.
Tom, let me jump back in.
Anyway, we'd be glad to help somebody out if they wanted to. I don't want to take up a lot of time with that. There are, if you got an issue and you got a big need for money, are you talking about millions? Or are you talking about hundreds of thousands?
Yeah, it's a $4.4 million project that is shovel ready.
Perfect.
I've got
Perfect.
in April, I'll have my 95% design done.
If it was only $500,000, probably couldn't do it. They probably wouldn't fund it. But since it's up there in the millions, I'd say you have a high probability of getting monies.
Okay.
Did I give my phone number also? 540-449-9024.
Yes.
That's my cell phone. So
Thank you, Tom.
yeah.
So
You take up so much time on that.
yeah, Kurt, you now know who to talk to help you get this going. Are any other questions that we need to touch on? I know we're getting a little long on time. We try and keep these to about a half hour. Any other questions come in, Abigail? Because if not, we can go ahead and button it up.
Before you go, I'll add something on the costs and stuff that you were covering before. I have, when I was working for dam safety, we did go out and file a lien on a piece of property, but it was a very egregious type situation. The guy liked being on TV for being a violator and having a very dangerous dam. He liked it. He used to hold court at Walmart, you know, stand up on boxes and present. And he was on TV dozens of times. That only happens in very egregious type situations. And what is coming though is since 2015, DCR Dam Safety is trying to go the route of issuing fines and fees for just about everything. If you're late on 1 week on your inspection report, your annual inspection, fine you $100 or $500. I don't know how much. I've been trying to get a copy of the proposed fines, and I have not been successful under the Freedom of Information Act yet. That you're going to see more and more, and that's only because some people within DCR have decided that they want to make the dam safety program pay for itself, and they're going to do that on the backs of owners of dams. Sorry. Thanks.
Yeah, good. Were there anything else, Abigail?
I thought there was one interesting question that came in. It just said, what sort of requirements apply to the people who own a regulated dam?
I would point out first that, you've got about 4,000 dams sprinkled across Virginia, and only about 2,000 of them are regulated. Tom mentioned the criteria for an ag dam to be regulated, the criteria that it had to meet. But there are criteria for, dams that aren't ag dams. If it's a 25-foot, if it's taller than 25 feet and has an impoundment capacity of 15 acre feet or greater, then that's going to fall into the regulated category. And if it's a shorter dam, but taller than 6 feet and has a capacity of at least 50 acre feet, then it would be a regulated dam. But there's lots of dams that don't meet those criteria, and so they aren't regulated. They're not subject to the act. So you've got, almost 4,000 dams in Virginia, only about 2,000 are subject to the act. But if you are subject to the act, yes, you've got to have an operation and maintenance certificate from the Virginia Soil Water Conservation Board. And then you've got a whole set of other requirements that are going to be tailored to your hazard classification. So if you're, a high hazard classification, you're going to have more onerous requirements than you would have if you're a low hazard classification. Significant is in the middle of those two. But generally speaking, you're going to have an emergency action plan. As an owner, no matter your classification, you're going to have to inspect your dam every year. And Tom just mentioned that if you're a little late on turning in that inspection report, you might get a traffic ticket from DCR that has a little fine attached to it. And then there's also, for certain dams, there's a requirement that it be inspected periodically by a professional engineer. The owner's inspection, the annual owner's inspection isn't going to be enough. So for a high hazard dam, for example, the professional engineer, you're going to have a professional engineer inspected. I think it might be every 2 years or something like that. And if you're a low hazard dam, it would be a much less frequent need to have a professional engineer look at it. Maybe something like every 6 years, I'm not sure.
Every 6 years.
And then again, if your dam is in the regulated category and you want to make some changes to your dam, you want to repair your dam, you're going to have to get a permit to do that from DCR. They're going to have to approve whatever alterations you're making to your regulated dam. So if you're in the regulated community, that's a thumbnail sketch of the kind of requirements that you're looking at.
Okay, great. Well, if that's all the questions, as Jim said, I think we could wrap. I did want to mention, though, if you have any others questions that might come up after the conclusion of the webinar, feel free to reach out. Jim's phone number is 757-502-7326, or you can connect with him via email at jlang@pendercoward.com. And in the meantime, have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.